Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. Well, the Africans are at it again, and some people may wonder why do they keep focusing on our reparations? Because our reparations are worth the most out of all of the slavery that took place globally. Because number one, we did so much during that time period. We built a nation. And it was everything also that followed that slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, and it just so many things. And there has never been any compensation, and there should have been. And see, these folks, if they would have just done it right after slavery, they wouldn't be listening to none of this right now. But the fact that you refuse to settle this whole thing is the reason why you still got to listen to it today. And, you see Donald Trump and his cabinet and his ilk trying to quash everything, get rid of the history, throw out back black authors, do this, do that. That's not going to make it go away. You know, it doesn't matter. All of that is in vain. And Africa, what the hell? Listen, why would we want the people that sold us to be in the forefront of the reparations argument? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And on top of that, you can't argue that in front of the UN better than we could. So let's say you succeed, Africa. Do you expect all that money to come to you? Because I think that's what the end result for you is. You want our reparations to go to Africa, and it shouldn't go to Africa because you sold us. You sold my forefathers. So why should you get one red cent? But I can see now, y'all, as we start gaining our inheritance, if the Africans can get in the way, they gonna try to get in the way, y'all. They gonna try to get in our damn way. If anything, you should be there trying to figure out ways of how you're gonna give us reparations. You shouldn't get our reparations, but you damn sure should be paying us reparations too. There's a lot of locations on this earth that owes us. Do you know a lot of things came out of our slavery? Global trading came out of our slavery. That's the reason why America could trade worldwide. It wasn't because white people went out on the field and worked and earned it and then sent it everywhere. No, it was from our forefather and foremothers' labor that trade became big. Now, a lot of people think we were responsible for all the money America made. Yes. And do you believe it was in two waves, y'all? And let me explain. Yes, one was from free labor. One was from free labor. The second one was from all of our inventions that went worldwide. So they made a first wave of money from the slavery, and then all the inventions that came out of our people, they made a second wave of astronomical money out of all of those inventions that came out of our people, and they stole. And then there's more. So you may think that was it. No, there's more. You can't even begin to think of all the astronomical money that has come out from our talent, from our music, from our sports. We've made so much money. We made crazy money for this country. And for them to get up and say we don't deserve nothing. No, you bitches don't deserve nothing. That's why you're losing your kingdom because you're the one that don't deserve anything. If it wasn't for us, America would probably look like a third world country. And you know what the proof is? Your farmers. When the help left, they let the damn crop, they let them rot. But if you were all about all the talent and everything came from the white man and the white man can do everything, why did you let your crops rot when your workers got deported? You just sat and watched everything dry up. You didn't try to save your farm. You didn't try to do the labor. Why didn't you say, okay, well, we really don't need those workers. We can get out there and do our own work. None of y'all did that. You were crying for labor to come out there and do that work. And if you go online, y'all, it's story after story after story after story of them losing their farms, losing their crops, just losing everything because no one was there to work the farms. That's why we know nothing would have came out of you if we were not here. Your farmers are proving it. Y'all are proving when the labor is gone. See, y'all ain't about labor. See, when the labor is gone, you'll let everything go to waste. Your farmers are showing that. Y'all don't have that fight and that heat in you. You don't have it. You keep claiming you do, but you really don't. You don't have that in you. And the thing is, y'all will whine and cry, "I lost a $2 million crop." Well, why did you lose a $2 million crop? Why didn't you get out there and work the farm? You stole all the land from the black farmers. The least you could do is work the damn land that you stole. And you didn't even do that. You didn't do that. So, I mean, that right there, to me, that speaks volumes. So when you try to say everything came from the white man, y'all make sure you point at the fact that they let their farms go to waste when their workers, when they got deported. If you did everything, you should have done that part too. And you didn't. You didn't. A lot of people noticed that too. A lot of people noticed y'all weren't willing to get out there, roll your sleeves up, and do that farm work. You weren't willing to do it. But you want to own the farm and tell everybody else what to do, but you don't want to do the work. Yeah, that sounds like you. That definitely sounds like you. So y'all, let's get into Ghana going before the UN over the transatlantic slave trade to argue reparations. And I really, truly don't believe this is their place to do so. Now, if you want to do this for free, and when the money come, it all comes to us, that's cool. But if you expect to run with the money, hell no, it's not right. No, no. I don't believe the ones that sold us should get anything, you know? And it took Donald Trump to shut down that 6 region crap the African Union tried to pull to get our money. Donald Trump said African nations don't deserve anything when it comes down to slavery here in America. And I agree with Donald Trump on that one. Y'all didn't do the labor. Y'all didn't even help us. You know, the things that was happening to us in this land went out worldwide. But there's no country on this planet that don't know about the racism we have gone through. Y'all never sent a boat. You never addressed this government and say, we don't like the way you're treating our people. You didn't stand up for us when our people were being lynched. When we were going through the crack epidemic, no African nation spoke up about that. Like, why did you sabotage these folks and throw drugs and weapons in their community? Africa did not speak up. But when y'all were going through apartheid, we spoke up. We spoke up, and companies, because the company I worked for stopped doing business with South Africa because of the apartheid that was going on. They would not do any, and they were trading and doing business with South Africa, and they cut them off. We took a stand, but y'all did not step up for us. When we were going through the civil rights movement, see, all of you groups are claiming to be there. Oh, we were there. Oh, the Latinos claimed they were there. Everybody was there. You weren't there. You weren't there. Y'all act like footage don't exist. Y'all do. You act like footage don't exist during those times. And then here go one of your other big arguments. Irish were slaves. You weren't the only one that went through slavery. Well, I find that really funny. We weren't the only ones that went through slavery, but we are the only ones photographed as as slaves. Why is that? Did everybody go through slavery, but the only group that's photographed out in them plantation fields are our forefathers and foremothers? Where's the picture of your people that you claim went through slavery? It don't exist. You know why? Because it was just us that went through that. It's amazing how all these other groups claim they went through slavery. Nary photo exists of it. But there's endless photographs of our people during slavery, our people during Reconstruction, our people during Jim Crow. But Juan Crow, where's the Juan Crow photos? Where are they? The only one that seems to be photographed from a slavery past are our people, and you don't see nobody else on them fields. So when you say everybody went through it, where's the everybody photos then? Where's the everybody documentation on it? It don't exist, y'all. It don't exist. I don't care how hard these people keep trying to include themselves in our slavery and in our Jim Crow. None of their photographs exist. None of their documentation exists. That's all I know. That's why I'm not willing to jump on the bandwagon. And most Irish didn't even do their full indentured servitude. Do you know the majority of them ran away? They ran when our people were running away from the plantation, the Irish were running away too. Do you know that? The Irish were running away too. Most of them, a big portion of them never finished their indentured servitude, which would have been done in, from what I was reading, anywhere from 4 to 7 years. And they didn't even finish it. They up and ran away around the same time our people were running away. And indentured servitude and chattel slavery are not the same. And they try. It's amazing how everybody is trying to latch on to our misery. I just find that funny. I guess 10 years from now, white people are going to claim y'all were mass incarcerated too. I guess y'all going to be making those claims. But boy, these people are a trip. All right, y'all. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I definitely want y'all to listen to this. And by the way, if you haven't stopped by any of my stores, stop by and get your 40% off discount for your hair growth products. All right. All right, y'all. Give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you. Oh, somebody said they did it to the natives. But you know what? Y'all want to hear something bizarre? Why are so many natives related to Mexicans? I'm just asking because I'm noticing that. Why are so many natives have relatives that are being deported and they're Mexican? I'm starting to really notice that. And I know other people are noticing it too. So on one hand, you're native. On the other, I don't have any relatives that are being deported. But these Native Americans, these alleged Native Americans got relatives that are being deported to Mexico, y'all. Go figure. I'm just saying. I just find that very interesting.
Reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and apartheid were designated as a flagship priority of our union. At the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025, I announced that Ghana would lead the effort to table a resolution declaring slavery and the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. That commitment marked the beginning of a structured diplomatic and legal process. On 24th March, Ghana will host a high-level side event at the United Nations, followed by a wreath-laying ceremony at the African Burial Ground National Museum in New York. And on 25th March 2026, the International Day of Remembrance.
Now, what they're talking about is they're supposed to be having a ceremony in New York City where they found a burial ground. But let me just tell y'all something about that. Do you know they're not even sure if those folks had any connection to Africa? But they're calling it the African burial ground that they found near the World Trade Center in New York. Some of y'all might remember when they found this burial ground, they were digging to do construction at a site and they came across a mass grave in New York. And now they're saying they're not even sure if any of those folks were from Africa. They could have been native to this land, but they're calling it African burial ground in New York. So I just want y'all to know that they are not even certain if they believe they were enslaved here, but they're saying they don't even know if those folks really had ties to Africa. But they show all the signs that they were slaves, like their bones, having broken bones and certain things about their characteristics. They can tell they were, doing slavery. But they're not even sure if these people even came from Africa. So I'm just letting you know. All right, so let's go on.
Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, Ghana, together with co-sponsors and with the endorsement of the African Union, will formally table the resolution before the General Assembly. We call upon all member states to support and co-sponsor this resolution. This initiative presents us a historic opportunity, an opportunity to affirm the truth of our history, an opportunity to recognize the grievous injustice in human history, an opportunity to lay a stronger foundation for genuine reconciliation and equality. While the past cannot be undone, it can be acknowledged, and acknowledgement is the first step towards justice.
October 2025, Ghana appoints Ekwa Spiogarbra as its special envoy for reparations. His mandate? To lead the nation's push for justice and financial compensation for Africans enslaved in the transatlantic slave trade. Reparations. Is it truly the act of making amends for the wrongs one has done by providing payment or other assistance to those who have been wronged? If so, why then is the Ghanaian descendant of a Fanti Dutch-German slave trader going around the world asking European descendants of slave traders to make amends for the sins of their fathers in enslaving some Africans, and by amends seeking financial compensation for the Africans brutally uprooted from the coast of present-day Ghana? Shouldn't Ekwa Spiogarbra and his maternal relations also be making amends for the sins of their ancestor, the German Fanti mulatto?
Now, y'all, I also want you to think about this. During the time of the transatlantic slave trade, Ghana didn't even exist. There was no country called Ghana back then. All right. So again, I don't understand why they think they deserve something. Ghana did not exist. There was nothing in Africa called Ghana back then. So let's go on.
Who traded heavily in slaves along the shores of Elmina, Sekondi, and Accra. To unravel the mystery surrounding the identity and genealogy of this infamous slave trader from whose loins Ekwa Spiogarbra and his maternal relations descend,
Ghana wishes to draw attention to the very consequential resolution which President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana will be tabling on the 25th of March, which is just next week, Wednesday, a few days from now. This is a resolution seeking to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. For more than 300 years, Africans were treated as property, were tortured, humiliated, raped, and forced out of the continent, over 12.5 million of them, in the most dehumanizing and despicable circumstances. The world is yet to acknowledge this. Perpetrators are yet to apologize and have not compensated the victims. This is the time to demand reparative justice, and this is the time to demand restitution. This is a resolution seeking to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. For more than 300 years, Africans were treated as property, were tortured, humiliated, raped, and forced out of the continent, over 12.5 million of them, in the most dehumanizing and despicable circumstances. The world is yet to acknowledge this. Perpetrators are yet to apologize and have not compensated the victims. This is the time to demand reparative justice, and this is the time to demand restitution.
Look at the hypocrisy. That's the Prime Minister of Ghana at this Latin American and Caribbean forum in Bogota, Colombia, demanding reparations like they have a right to reparations. Did we not forget that Latin America was conquered by Spain, right? Some of the people who run Latin America to this day are descendants of Spaniards, the same people that, enslaved the people in those lands. So you're talking about reparations, then those people that's the descendant of slaves in those countries deserve reparations from their government, not the United States. If we're talking about reparations from the United States, then that's strictly exclusively to Black Americans, ADOS and freemen, the descendants of Black enslaved Americans and the descendants of freemen in this country. Now, Africa was a co-conspirator, especially Ghana. Ghana turned slavery into tourism. They making money off all those slave castles, millions of dollars, right? Let's not talk about that, how they're co-conspirators too. So the people that participated in this, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Europeans, and the French, right? Those are the people that need to give reparations. Like if it's the Caribbeans, what is that? The UK, those UK Europeans, yeah, get your reparations over there. But over here in the United States, that's not an African thing. That's a Black American thing. Yeah, it sounds like another scam to me, if you ask me. But yeah, and did I not mention that Ghana still make money off slavery? They turn slavery into tourism.
This is a resolution seeking to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. For more than 300 years, Africans were treated as property, were tortured, humiliated, raped, and forced out of the continent, over 12.5 million of them, in the most dehumanizing and despicable circumstances. The world is yet to acknowledge this. Perpetrators are yet to apologize and have not compensated the victims. This is a time to demand reparative justice.
I'm for any and everybody getting their just due, but I'm really confused on this statement because, yes, if you ask me, the transatlantic slave trade was one of the biggest crimes against humanity in general. But here's where the confusion comes in. That guy's from Ghana. His people sold my people. That's why I'm here. So it's kind of confusing that they're calling for reparations. Reparations from whom? Which government, right? Because only about 300,000 Africans came to what we consider the United States today. That's a verifiable fact, okay? So when you talk about reparations, we're gonna have to talk about the English government, right? Those Arab countries that are still selling slaves today, they owe you, right? But he used transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade was only the Caribbean and America. That's it. Slavery as a whole was much, much more than that. I hope you guys can understand that and decipher what I'm trying to say. So when I hear a man in Africa saying transatlantic slave trade, he has to be more specific on what he's talking about. And then I would love to know how they think they deserve reparations, seeing that their people sold my people, right? And reparations from whom?
Ghana wishes to draw attention to the very consequential resolution which President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana will be tabling on the 25th of March, which is just next week, Wednesday, a few days from now. This is a resolution seeking to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity.
This is so disrespectful.
For more than 300 years, Africans were treated as property, were tortured, humiliated, raped, and forced out of the continent, over 12.5 million of them, in the most dehumanizing and despicable circumstances. The world is yet to acknowledge this. Perpetrators are yet to apologize and have not compensated the victims. This is a time to demand reparative justice, and this is the time to demand restitution.
Oh, this is utterly disgraceful. It's disrespectful. The fact that the Ghanaian president is going to the African Union and going to the United Nations to demand restitution and reparations on behalf of Black Americans for what our ancestors experienced during chattel slavery, more so than transatlantic slavery, because 12 million were not trafficked from the west coast of Africa to the mainland, the United States of America. Less than 4% of those people actually came to the United States of America. And the fact that those people are only trying to speak on behalf of Black Americans speaks volumes. What about the majority that went to the Caribbean? Why aren't you trying to demand restitution or reparations from the Caribbeans, from Latin and Central America? Come on, people, we have to wake up. This is not about giving a damn about what our people endured. Let me show y'all something. Look at this. The Ghanaian president, John Dramani Mahama, will lead a wreath-laying ceremony at the African Burial Ground National Monument in New York City on March 24th, 2026. First of all, those people were not Africans. Those people were Black American people. The event, part of a push for slavery reparations at the UN, highlights the site as the largest, oldest known burial ground for enslaved free Africans in the US. Enslaved and free Africans, those people were not in large African. A lot of those people also will mix with different other ethnic groups. Part of a high-level United Nations event to table a reparations resolution. Let me move out the way so y'all can see the rest. The site, located as at African Burial Ground, Way and Duane Street, holds over 15,000 remains and represents colonial era Africans who struggle to maintain West and Central African burial traditions. This was not named the African burial. Now, this is where they admit that they are not even sure if all of these people are African, West African, or of Ghanaian descent. Ghana wasn't even established as a country back then. This is why this is so disrespectful to me and to you. If you are an American, a melanin-rich American with a long lineage here, and your ancestors actually helped to build this country. Let me read the rest. The ritual, they're coming to do a ritual over our ancestral burial ground in New York City on March 25th. If that is not diabolical, then I don't know what is. Okay. The ceremony acknowledges the site where many enslaved people were buried with, in some cases, West African cultural traditions, including a potential Akan, Ghanaian, and Senkofa symbol. In some cases. How did they excavate? They dug up them back. Connection to Ghana. In 2003, re-entered ancestors were placed in 419 hand-carved mahogany coffins made in Ghana. So because the coffins were made in Ghana, that means that all of those people were Ghanaian. President Mahama, as the African Union champion for reparations, calls the acknowledgement as the first step forward toward justice. Justice for who? Ghana will lay a wreath at the African Burial Ground National Monument in New York City on March 24th, 2026, as part of events leading to the presentation of a slavery resolution at the United Nations General Assembly. President John Dramani Mahama has announced. The president announced this on Sunday, February 15, 2026, during a press conference at the 39th Ordinary Session of the African Union Assembly in Addis Ababa, where he spoke in his role as the African Union champion for reparations. Who appointed this man a champion for reparations for Black Americans? Can somebody tell me? Did we agree to this? Y'all can pause to read the rest. The initiative is not directed at any nation. It's directed toward truth, recognition, and reconciliation. No, you're directed at the United States government, and we all know why. African enslavement and racialized chattel enslavement were fundamental crimes that shaped the modern world, and their consequences continue to appear in structural inequality, racial discrimination, and economic disparity. Recognition is not about division. And then you could pause to read the rest. The African Union assigned Ghana the reparations mandate following an adoption of the decision 884 in February 2024, which declared 2025 the year of justice for Africans. The year of justice for Africans. Y'all can read the Let me read. Y'all pause to read the rest. If this does not raise cause for concern, if you don't have an immigrant background, if you're not a continental African, then I don't know what to tell you. Ghana has a lot of issues of its own that it should be focused on, as opposed to worrying about restoration and reparations that's old and due to Americans, not continental Africans, but Americans who actually have a direct link to people that were enslaved and people that did experience chattel slavery. The nerve of Ghana to feel like they are in any position to have the balls enough for that Ghanaian president to go to an African Union or the United Nations to speak on behalf of Black American people. when people are still being trafficked and sold into slavery in the West Africa in 2026. Those people could absolutely use your help. Stop meddling in our business only when it comes to money, reparations, and restorations. Chattel slavery is not the only thing that we need restoration and reparations for. A lot of our land was stolen. We went through redlining. We went through the war on drugs. We went through school to prison pipeline. A lot of us were lynched here more so than chattel slavery in the 1900s. Still picking cotton in the 1900s for wages that literally is not even existent. There's no even not a poverty line or anything that exists. Getting kicked out of our homes because we wanted to register to vote. These are all of the things that we experience here, and it has fuck all to do with Ghana or West Africa. And if you think that we are all just continental Africans in Ghana and West Africa, y'all owe us money too. You trying to get paid twice? You sold some people allegedly, according to y'all, and made some money, and now you want to come back and usurp resources and get money off of those people again? I'm trying to, okay. What y'all think about this? This is a long video. Spread love is to Brooklyn Way. Sound off in the comments. Are we serious? They literally trying to steal our reparations, and we just all supposed to be, yeah, we're African. What are they going to do with the funds? Are they going to give it to us? They ain't give that, no.
Well, the greatest crime against humanity in recorded history. That's what Ghana and its African Union backers are calling the transatlantic slave trade, and want it recognized as such by the international community. A proposed UN General Assembly resolution is expected to urge reparations for the centuries-long practice that impacted millions of Africans. All right, to discuss this now, I'm joined live by the Foreign Minister of Ghana, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Samuel, good to have you on the program with us. First off, what can you tell us about this upcoming motion at the UN and what it actually entails?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on RT.
You know, this is how you know this is a scam. If you're going to have any discussions about the transatlantic slave trade, why is no one going before the UN is a descendant of those slaves? You notice how even when it was the African Union, when they came up with that 6th region, nobody ever talks to us or brings us along for these hearings. You notice that? That right there sends a major, major red flag. They want to have all this conversation and chatter about slavery without the actual descendant of slavery. It makes no sense. That's why I will never trust it. I will never trust it. If anything, Ghana, you need to be digging in your pocket to compensate us. That's the only thing you need to do. All this other stuff, we don't need this from you at all.
Resolution President John Dramani Mahama will be tabling at the United Nations on the 25th of March is a consequential one. It seeks to declare the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. It is documented that more than 12.5 million Africans were forcibly removed from the continent. Some of them ended up in the Caribbean, working in plantation farms under very dehumanizing conditions. Others ended up in the United States of America and Europe. They were trafficked as chattel, as property. They had no rights. They were tortured. They were stripped naked and just commodified. During the journey, it is now documented that more than 3 million Africans lost their lives, either tossed into the Atlantic Ocean or those who just decided to just commit suicide by diving into the ocean. Those who died in the plantations and during this very dehumanizing ordeal that they went through. It is important to emphasize that this atrocity has not been properly acknowledged. There are many countries and organizations that continue to live in denial. They do not want to accept their role. They do not want to take responsibility. And that is what this resolution seeks to achieve, to bring this to the international community's attention at the United Nations, the global public square, and to seek a genuine effort by the international community to address this, to compensate people of African descent and all Africans for this atrocious crime that took place. There are also millions of artifacts that were stolen. We are demanding that they are returned to the continent. We want restitution. And we are also demanding that those who live in denial must acknowledge their crimes, and we must all work together collectively, like we have done with other crimes. See how we have, very well addressed other crimes against humanity. And we've ensured that compensation has been paid, there's been acknowledgement, and that there is redress being sought. We have not seen that same approach, that same seriousness with the transatlantic slave trade. And we are not being confrontational. We are not seeking to, if you like, stir the hornet's nest. We are doing this in a very conciliatory manner. We want an acknowledgement of history. These are historical facts which cannot be contested. It's well documented. It is unassailable, unimpeachable, and incontrovertible. And we just want the international community to acknowledge this and the perpetrators to own up, take responsibility, and to right the wrongs as we seek spiritual healing, as we seek closure to what took place between the 15th and 19th century. And remember that Ghana is a crime scene because we host the highest number of forts and castles where millions of Africans were taken through the door of no return. And that is why the African Union asked President Mahama to champion this cause. And we want to thank all African member states. We want to thank CARICOM. We want to thank CELAC from the Latin American bloc. And of course, our good friends in Asia and another continents, the GCC countries, who have all pledged their support to vote massively for this resolution, which will be tabled next week on the 25th of March.
So, Mr. Ablakwa, the initiative has already received backing from the African Union. Just how consolidated is the African continent on this issue, in your view?
Very consolidated. At the last African Union summit in Addis Ababa, all 54 member states of the African Union voted in support of this resolution. Not a single member state abstained. All countries are in full support of this resolution. And I can confirm to you that we have also been communicated to officially by the current head of CARICOM, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, that CARICOM is supporting this resolution and block 100% fully. We also enjoy the support of a considerable number of Gulf states and countries from the Asian bloc. And so we believe that we have mobilized enough numbers to ensure that this resolution is successful on the 25th of March.
Ghana's president has previously called for Western nations to pay reparations to African states. In your view, how likely is that to ever happen?
I am an eternal optimist. President Mahama is also an eternal optimist. He knows that the road will not be easy. It will be bumpy. There will be many hurdles put on our path, but we are very confident that we will succeed. We have been able to form a strong coalition working with colleagues in CARICOM, Latin America, Asia, and the Gulf countries. And we believe that we will be able to galvanize the support of the larger international community. And we must emphasize that the reparations we seek is not financial support to go to political leaders, not at all. We are putting together a framework that will support the people, the real victims, in terms of educational endowment funds, because remember that we are still living with the injustices, with the residual inequality that people of African descent face on a daily basis. So the reparations we seek is to ensure that these structural inequalities are addressed in terms of funding for projects, funding for African entrepreneurs, the young people who need opportunities, who need skills training, who need empowerment. So courses, that is what we are looking at, not funding for politicians or, if you like, a few elite to control or to, if you like, abuse. So it's going to be a very transparent mechanism. And we are also talking about the return of artifacts. That is very important to us because the Ashanti Kingdom, the Mali Empire, the Benin Kingdom, the Songhai Empire, and all of these, rich African traditions, the heritage of our people, have lost a lot of their artifacts, millions of artifacts that were taken away, which are in museums in the West or being kept by individual collectors who are refusing to return them. I acknowledge that in recent years, we have been quite successful. Recently, the UK returned some artifacts to us, but that's not all. We have the full list. Our researchers have documented all of these artifacts, which have to be returned. So it is really crucial. And you see, these artifacts are not just objects. They have spiritual importance. It is about our identity. It's about the soul of a people. It is what demonstrates who we are and what aligns us to the various traditions, the heritage, the culture, that we belong to, our allegiance to our chieftaincy institutions and who our leaders are. So there's a deep spiritual meaning. It's about our soul and our connection to the motherland. And these artifacts, with extreme spiritual importance, have to be returned. So when we are talking about comprehensive healing, when we are talking about having all of what was taken out brought back for a holistic resolution of this matter, that is what we mean. And artifacts are also extremely important. So we are confident because already we are seeing some successes. Some of these artifacts are being returned. We want all of them returned. Our friends in Egypt have a tall list. The Egyptians have documented a lot of these artifacts that were taken away. The colleagues in the who have researched on the Ashanti Kingdom also have a tall list of artifacts that have not been returned. And all of this is well documented in the UN resolution, which we hope that once it is carried by the world's foremost multilateral organization, we will see the countries that continue to perpetuate this, that continue to keep what does not belong to them, do the right thing by returning these artifacts to the continent.
So when it comes to the issue of reparations, what is your response to those who say that some Africans also made a profit from the slave trade?
We totally disagree. This has been debunked. There is no basis for that whatsoever. It started initially with an attempt to divide and rule, and that has always been their strategy. Knock heads together, claim that Africans were those who, sold out their peers. I mean, it is all balderdash, with all due respect. Africa did not benefit from this whatsoever. Rather, we bore the brunt. The brightest, the strongest, the healthiest were taken out. After they were taken out, their indignity was further perpetrated by the fact that they were treated worse than even animals. Pets had more rights than our brothers and sisters who were forcibly removed from the continent. And research has demonstrated that we still live even with the consequences of that, because the kind of food, very poor, poor nutritional food that was served them, which was not good for their growth, and is affected their genetics and their children that were born after that, which has continued. A lot of the diseases which continue to plague the African continent has been traced to that. The poor nutrition, the starvation, and how, very poorly Africans were treated. And then if you look at the systems that were created, the global systems of exploitation, which has lingered on until this day, which has created the inequalities that we continue to suffer. Nobody can claim that Africans benefited. How did Africans benefited? I mean, what did we benefit from? That they took away our brothers and sisters who were the strongest, the brightest, the healthiest? How did we benefit from that? That they were tortured, they were raped, and a lot of them died in the process. How did we benefit from that? And the fact that they went to, plow land and help to build cosmopolitan Europe, how did we benefit from that? I mean, how have we? So rather, on all fronts, we have been the losers, and our dignity has been affronted in the most violent manner, and we have never been the same. We are not whole, we are not complete, because of what transpired for the better part of 400 years between the 15th and the 19th century. So those who make that point, that Africa may have benefited, are really insulting us. They are adding insult to injury. And the earlier they stop those assertions, the better for all of us.
We have recently seen a major shift in West Africa's relations with former colonial power.
So he's denying their hand in selling to the white man during slavery. Well, that's interesting. But the bottom line is we are fine with representing ourselves. We should not need a middleman to speak for us. And he's not the only one. Joy Reid recently said Africans did not sell us, so I guess everybody's trying to run from the scene of the crime now. But the bottom line is we are owed. We are owed by many, even beyond America. If you think it's just America, then you're not thinking big enough. And, if these Africans were really at the same level as us, why did they come here being so wicked to us then? I mean, you can clearly tell they're an adversary. They're not anybody to come here and have a bond with us. They don't do that. They come here calling us slurs, repeating all of the things the white man says, they repeat back to us. But, you can tell their spirit is totally different from us. We are not the same people at all. And you can instantly feel it when you're around them. They have a whole different spirit from us. We are nothing alike. Okay, the melanin part, but beyond that, we are nothing alike. We have nothing in common. Yeah, they definitely got that Hamite spirit on them. You can tell. And even when they speak, it's totally different from us. It's no similarities whatsoever. just in the way they express themselves. It's very different from the way we express ourselves. So, no, you know, and the sad part is during civil rights, we were the ones that gave them the opportunity to even come over here. Little that we know, we didn't know we were letting over some enemies. You know, I'm sure if many of our mothers and fathers during the civil rights movement really knew these people, they would not have advocated to let them come over here. I'm certain of it. But all we did was open the floodgate for enemies to come over here. And they come off of the plane believing their fight is with us. That is a big problem. And that's how many of them do it. They have horrible attitudes towards us. So, yeah, you know, I don't look at them as my brothers and sisters. I don't. We may be related, you know, if you go back to the story of Noah, yeah, we're related, but there is no connection at all. Not feeling it. So, y'all, now you know, and there is another attempt to swipe our reparations. You know, they know we are owed trillions of dollars. You know, there's not as many people in the Caribbean islands as there are here in mainland America. So the more of us means more dollars. That's what they're really looking at. The Caribbean, yeah, they're filled with our people, but the numbers don't add up to our numbers here in the United States. So that alone, they know if reparations are given, we're going to get the cash cow. We're going to get the biggest chunk of that money. And it's almost like they're trying to set themselves up to take it all or get a big chunk of it for Africa. But it is not our responsibility to make right of whatever's wrong in Africa. Okay, it is not our responsibility to make anything right in Africa, and certainly not with reparations money. So, y'all, I just wanted to present this to you. And, you know, I think it's a shame that even when it comes down to our reparations, which should be cut and dry, it should be, you know, just knowledge of who's owed what. You got all of these people now trying to muddy the waters. Look, when America decided to tackle reparations, all they're willing to do is a bunch of task force and committees and don't want to go beyond that. So we had that problem. And now we getting Africans that are trying to mastermind ways to get at our money. Boy, we just can't win. We just can't win, for real. Descendants of greatness, thank you so much for your super chat. Mexicans descend from Spanish conquistadors. Yes, they do. And actually, they will tell you that themselves, that they are the children of the conquistadors. I've heard them say it. You know, they're not saying they are the descendants of slave. Well, they're trying to say it now because there's money in it, you know, reparations. The average Mexicans, 60 to 80% European. Yeah, they say they are 70% Spaniard. They erased native identity. Yeah, but they don't talk about anything but their Spanish conquistador side. That's what they really talk up. Even when you talk, even the ones in the Caribbeans, oh, they heavily acknowledge the Spaniard part of themselves. But when it comes down to the African part, they don't want to talk about that shit. Oh, hell no, they don't want to talk about that. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, y'all, I mean, oh boy, in these final days, it sure is a trip. That's for sure. Yes, I heard about the floods in um Hawaii. In fact, they told them to get the hell out of there because it's going to get worse. I did read that as well. They told the Hawaiians in those areas that flooded to get out, to leave. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, well, technically the Haitians are Latino, you know that, right? The Haitians are Latino and so are the Jamaicans. They've all fall under that category of Latino. Mhm. Yeah, so y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate it, and we'll definitely come back together tomorrow on all new topics. Shalom, family.